so-called new normal as we, let's see what develops ahead. Okay, kung mayroon lang bukas, I will be the first to announce. But, alam mo, remember, the COVID microbes are still in the air that you breathe, that you pass on to your fellow men if you are not ready or willing to wear the mask. It is precisely, this is the protection, not for you if you do not want it, but for the protection of the other guy. And that is why the state has every right to control your movement if you pass on a contagion to the other to the population. Kasi kung ikaw lang ang gusto, ayaw mo, and there are people who are like that, ayaw nila. And they believe that they have the antibodies to fight the coronavirus. So, if the virus is there, tapos gusto mong labanan, bahala ka. But for you to pass that virus, if you get it from one place and from another person and pass it to the other guy, that's different. That is where the right of the state comes in. So that to prevent a mass contagion, gusto namin putulin kung saan namin maputol to stop it. That is the reason of the essence of the police power of the state, to come up with measures to protect public interest, public health, public safety, lahat. Nandiyan yan. Case of peace and order, magkagulo, the state comes in. Yung may contagion and everybody is dying, falling, kasali yan. Public interest, if say, uncontrolled movement, or baski people trying to seize other people's property, or things like just being into a state of anarchy. The state has the right to come in and put a stop on it. That is the survival of the Republic of the Philippines. Now, this is a country of Filipinos who obey the laws. If you do not obey the law, that's your problem. Bahala ka. Good kung makasibat ka. Kung hindi ka makasibat, ay pasensya ka.
Mr. President, there has been a confusion among our people who associate the opening of school with what we describe as face-to-face classes, where we are used to learners, we are used to teachers facing each other, and we are used to children going to school physically. But we are saying that there will be no face-to-face classes and sessions until we are assured of the safety of our children and our teachers. However, we also believe, Mr. President, that we can provide learning opportunities to our students without necessarily requiring them to go to school. And this we can do through what is described as blended and distant learning. Mr. President, this is not a new thing. We have many universities and schools which offer distant learning in many ways. We now call it blended learning because various approaches which are adjusted to the actual situation of the communities will be applied. But these are all, Mr. President, consistent with your preference that we should not be physically sending our children to school until it is safe to do so. what is the so-called blending or learning modalities? Because right now, there is a bill which is filed in Congress on this. One, for those who don't have connections, who don't have interactive facilities, there will be what we describe as printed material, which will be delivered to the homes of the students through the barangays, can be picked up also by their parents at designated places within coordinated schedules. We'll be working very closely with the barangays and the local governments. And the second approach is now very popular, Mr. President. This is the online learning platform, and we in DepEd, we have what we describe as DepEd Commons. Right now, we already have over 7 million subscribers, wherein lessons, homework, quizzes, tips to learners and to teachers are all in the DepEd Commons and are accessible even to the parents. So we have instances, Mr. President, of parents who are abroad and who are monitoring what is happening to their children. They also go to the DepEd Commons and check on how their children are doing. Now, in cases, Mr. President, where there is no connectivity and printed materials may not be available immediately, we have the classic long-time approaches which have always been used in education, and this would be television. Those homes which do not necessarily have connectivity and may have television. And the most and the best used approach, of course, is radio-based instruction. Kasi ang television, mga 1950s, 60s, radios have been around since the 1800s when it was first invented. And we know that 2 world wars were won through radio messages and not necessarily computers and so on. Not everybody has access to television or to online computers. So ito yung ancient, pinakamatandang paraan for teaching as an alternative to face-to-face. Now, Mr. President, what we are doing in the regions is, the regions are different from each other. Some regions have many islands, some regions have many mountains, some regions have interconnectivity, and so on and so forth. So what our regions are now doing is to translate our curriculum from curriculum for lecture, the teacher lectures the children for long periods of time. It has to be translated, one, into digital modes sa platforms natin, into television programs, because children have to be taught through in a different way. Iba yung effect ng television programs because their attention span can be very brief as well. And then also converted into radio scripts. So this is where much of the work is now being concentrated. What we are saying, Mr. President, is that we fully and completely support your stand that our children should not be exposed to the dangers of COVID-19 physically, but we are also offering opportunities for them to continue their studies and their learnings. And some people ask, are we prepared? What we are trying to do, Mr. President, are not really new. Hindi naman to bagong invento, because distance education, many universities have distant education programs. Many local governments have radio stations. We are utilizing existing ways of communication without necessarily requiring our children to go to school. So they can still go to school, they can still study, teachers can monitor them as well as their parents. So ito yung namin, Mr. President, which we would like to share with you, and we seek your approval of our alternative ways of learning, which are already existing right now. And these are being done by many schools, but this time, mas malaki ang emphasis because we are now shifting to less physical face-to-face classes. But education will continue, Mr. President. Thank you.
But education, I think, if it is compromised, it should be negligible, so that it should go on, because the future of this country depends on how we educate our young people nowadays. I agree with you in this program. I support you. And if there's anything that we can do, the ALG and or whatever, we will
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
endeavor to help you.